Good evening. Certainly good to see you all. We are in Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3. This chapter really just sums up the Christian life, what we're supposed to stay away from, what we're supposed to gather up, all these things here. And of course, Colossians, in the context of things, the people of Colossae are surrounded by false teachers, those who are surrounded by teachers who want to enforce or put in a single pot, if you will, all the quote-unquote philosophies and knowledges of men, and in the assumption of that, well, if we have the knowledge of everybody, there's no way we could be wrong. Gnosticism is a big problem. God is all good since He's a spirit and we're flesh and all flesh is evil, so there's no way God could be flesh or God could come in contact with man without a filtration system and all of that. And of course, Paul is trying to encourage these people, Christians, by the way, this letter is written to Christians, that in Christ is all that we need. That's where all the treasure, all the knowledge is, and we need nothing else. So that is this here. Christ is preeminent. That's really emphasized in this book. We are complete in Christ, and then this chapter here is a great chapter for just a basic summary of being complete in Christ, or being perfect in Christ. How we're supposed to live and the way we're not supposed to live anymore. We kind of ended on verse 5 last week. We got into a pretty good discussion here, and we'll get back into that, and then we'll keep going from there for tonight. So just by way of review, we'll just go ahead and read 1 through 5, and then move on to 5 here. Okay. If ye then be risen with Christ, and of course we know what that means now, right? The only way we can be risen with Christ is how? Baptism, no other way. If we've been risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sits, knowledge, material things on earth. Why? Because you are dead. Wait a minute. Dead how? You put off the old man. He's been crucified. He is dead. Now you're made alive, and your life is hid in Christ. Okay? And when Christ, who is our life, again, I love to emphasize that, because we generally say, and it's not wrong to say, that Christ could come for in any kind of sense, His teachings, His lifestyle. That's what we want. We want to meditate on His teaching, period. Nothing else. All right, so who is our life shall appear, then shall ye also appear with Him in glory. Now, verse 5, the first word is not therefore. It's the second word. Therefore, okay? There's the bridge word, if you will, that connects between that. Because you've been risen with Christ, and that because you are dead, or if you've put off the old man, because He is your life completely, totally, not 99.9%, but 100%, mortify. What does that word mortify mean? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. To put to death. Mortify your members. It's in order to seek those things above, we have to mortify the passions and the desires here on earth. Friends, that's it's not just okay, I'm going to stop doing that. We're going to stop thinking about it, right? We're going to stop even. I think of it as testing the waters, to see how much trouble you can get yourself into. You kind of dip your big toe in the water to see, or you might jump in the water to see how deep it is. If it's not too deep, it'll be all right. This is one of those things we're not even going to test. Okay, we're going to completely get away from that. And so get rid of it, mortify, put to death these members. Okay, let's go to Romans 6, if you will. Romans chapter 6. And read with me beginning at verse 12. Of course, at the let's read the very first few verses here, and then we'll get to 12. But I love how Paul begins this chapter. He does it right in chapters. This is a letter, but this chapter begins in a question that's really rhetorical. I mean, what shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? You know, we hear that sometimes even in the religious world. God's grace, it's a big umbrella. No matter what you do, His grace is going to cover that. And you'll be just fine. That's not what the Bible teaches at all. In fact, we'll keep reading. What does Paul say about that? Verse 2, God forbid. God forbid. It's no joke. Sin is no joke. And I'm afraid that in this country, sin has been desensitized to the point that where people are, their conscience is seared off when it's committed, or will act like, well, it's no shocking thing, you know. We're not mortified by somebody committing a sin anymore. I'm generally speaking. Some will look, well, before I became a Christian, I used to do this, and then kind of make it a joking, laughing kind of thing. Really, when we look in our past, we shouldn't be joking about it. What should we be doing? Blessed are ye that mourn. We should be mourning our past and look back every now and then, not beating yourself up and like, man, I don't, to the point where you tell yourself, I don't deserve what I've got. Well, none of us do. None of us do. We don't deserve anything we have right now, spiritually or materially. But I'm not saying go beat yourself up, but it's good to look back sometimes to remind ourselves where we came from and what we could have been. Yeah, that's a good point, Raymond. He says if you look back and you don't see different or don't feel any different, then there's really a problem. Okay, there's a heart problem there for sure. All right, so how shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Okay, and so we are dead to sin. We've put off the old man. We've been buried in baptism with Jesus Christ. Now let's look at verse 12. Let not sin therefore, look at that next word. What do you have? Reign. Can sin rule your life? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. To the point where maybe somebody will who's living in sin, but it's one of them secret sins nobody knows about, nobody outside your home or whatnot, and then before anybody could find out, you delete your history on your website or your search engine, or you hide the fact that you've been doing something you shouldn't been doing. And look at all the energy that you're spending to hide the sins that you've committed. What about when somebody lies to somebody? In order to not get caught about that lie, what are we going to have to do? Tell another lie. And then you keep digging yourself deep and deep and deep. And man, and when you finally get caught, you're drowning. Sin has ruled your life. Okay? So, let not sin therefore reign in your, notice that word there, mortal body, that you should obey it in the lusts thereof. Of course, you and I are born with some desires, but we're also born not like the animals, but you and I have the ability to control ourselves. We have self-control, which, by the way, is one of the fruits of the Spirit. So you follow the Scriptures, and the fruit of self-control is developed in you, okay? So you should obey it in the lust thereof. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law of Moses, but under grace. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? What does he say again? God forbid. Forbid. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness. There you go. Who's your master? Who's your master? No man could serve two masters, right? Right. You decide who your master is. I can't decide for you, though I'd like to encourage you to serve God, but I can't make you serve God. You can even put on a mask and say, yeah, I'm serving God, I love the Lord, and you do all these things, but somewhere else in a closet or something else, you still have the world in your heart. Okay? So there's some things there that we have to put to death. Mortify your members. Can't set our affections on things above and continue to practice these sins. All right, let's go back to Colossians 3. Okay, and here's the and these things here in the context. Remember, they're throwing in paganism within this so-called man philosophy. So you have acts of pagan worship in this list, but it always applies to today. Fornication, pagans, that's how they worship their little g gods. Fornication, which is it's sex outside of marriage. Doesn't matter if it's between same sex or opposite sex. If it belongs to one man, one woman who are married. That's what that blessing belongs to. Uncleanness. Here's where our discussion comes here. Inordinate affection and evil concupiscence, and we've kind of talked about what those things are. They're kind of the same here. Inordinate affections is an affection of a mind. It's a passionate desire. It could be. It's usually in an evil sense of a desire. But evil concupiscence here is a craving. Okay, have you ever craved something? I mean, like pizza. Like all I've thought about all day is I want to eat pizza, stuffed crust pizza. All right, so that night I call Erica. Erica, let's get a pie. All right, because I'm craving pizza. Right. This right here is different from that. This is a craving and an evil desire, a craving to where you constantly think about it all the time. And you think about it, and you think about it, and you think about it. And not only that, you will scheme or come up with a plan in your mind in order to fulfill that desire. That's what that is. Now, it's a thing that could be developed. And that's why we were talking about a little bit about, the social dancing, especially with the teenagers, and how we put them in an environment to where it could be dangerous. And we want to avoid that because why? Well, they're teenagers and they're still learning about things, and they're curious about things, and they have hormones that are raging, and people will think all the time, and usually they do, and they'll say, well, that will never happen to my kid. Is that always true? We want to raise them in such a way where we could put our full trust in them. Even if we fully trust them and know or have a confidence in them, we still don't want to put them in a situation where they can fail. You always want to put them in a situation where they can succeed. Period. All right, and that includes things like this. All right. So evil concupiscence, it's an evil desire. I want this lust fulfilled, and I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to find a way to act on it so I can satisfy this so much. And friends, I'm going to just tell you, the world is so dangerous right now. We went to a marriage retreat, I think it was last year, somewhere in Cleveland, Tennessee, And it was a great lesson. And one of the first things he did is he held up his iPhone. He said, adults can't even handle this. Adults can't. Why are we even giving them to our children? So I'm like, wow, okay. Why does he say that? Do we have any idea of what they can access with their iPhones? Yep. 7 years old and access to pornography. 7. And my kids want a phone. Are you kidding me? No way. I think I did a sermon on bondage or sin, the bondage of sin one time, and you know how I do some graphics up there and put the title of the sermon on there. Don't put bondage of sin in your Google and hit images. You'll get a nice surprise. It's that easy to come in contact, to be exposed to something that evil. We went to a youth rally a couple years back. I think it was Fairview, actually. We took some boys. Kyle Butt was speaking, and it stuck with me. He says, "Listen, whatever you put in here, you're never going to get it out. You will never get it out." And he talked about the importance of not letting kids alone with electronics and even having a computer in their room and things like that. And trust me, if y'all ever decide or change your mind or decide to take the computer out, they're going to tell you how much they hate you. And you say, you know what? I take that with pride. Why? Because you want them to go to heaven. Okay? We do not want our kids exposed. He said adults can't even handle this. Could be, yeah. It's very common to see a husband and wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend on a date at a restaurant. Instead of talking to each other, what do? I hope they're texting each other if they're both doing this, right?
Our world gets so mixed up. I saw a commercial, like first time I seen this guy sitting outside smoking pot. And it said, don't drive if you're high.
Don't drive if you're high. Drink responsibly. That sounds really nice, don't it? You ever seen that on the commercial? That's a nice way of putting drink our beverage, but don't drink too much. Of course, all of those commercials are lies, but the pornography, whether it's in pictures or in words, all that's included in evil concupiscence. Television, movies, internet, like we just talked about, has so much lust-provoking material. It's really, really, really disturbing. Okay, and it's only getting worse. Why? Maybe because, and I'm not blaming, I'm just generally speaking, maybe it's the church's fault. Maybe we're not stepping up enough. Maybe we're not aware. Okay, maybe we're not aware. Certainly. Absolutely.
What our children are seeing now, that's their norm.
That's their norm, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's a good woman right there. She said her mama, she said this may sound old school or whatnot. She said they used to say to the mama, "Don't you trust us?" Oh. And she said, well, if you lay with a dog long enough, you'll end up with fleas. That's true. That is true. I mean, there's several parents in here now that have teenagers or have kids who are about to be teenagers. I don't even want to think about it. And it's not easy. I'm up here talking like I know everything, but I'm trying to. It's serious. It's eternally serious. That's why I've got to say it. And so we have to be serious about it and be stern about it. And your kids are going to tell you, "Oh, I hate you so much." But you know what? Either 20 years down the line, they're going to thank you for being so stern with them, or when they're in heaven, they're going to thank you immensely. Say something positive, Raymond.
My grandson was baptized this past Sunday night.
I know it, man. I saw the post. He wanted to bring it up real quick. He couldn't. He was itching up here. His grandson Cohen was baptized Sunday night. His daddy baptized him at the congregation where they went to. So that's awesome. I can't wait to see him. I'm going to be up there in November to speak at some youth rally that they're doing. But yes, he wanted to share that with y'all. All right, now you got me off track, Raymond. But I mean, it's kind of related. It's a serious thing, and the addiction to these lust-provoking materials. I mean, people. There are even, look. I've heard there are preachers who are addicted to it. There are members of the Lord's church who are addicted to it. There are apps out there now that help you find accountable partners. Or if you perhaps are about to get on one of them websites, it alerts your accountable partner and they're going to call or know something about it. It's that serious.
I don't know if you saw it, that Illinois school board passed that they have to teach LPG, whatever, as part of religion neutrality in their school.
Yeah. Yep, Illinois passed. Yep. Illinois passed that the schools must teach LGBTQ history as a neutrality kind of deal, a tolerance thing, if you will. So even in Canada, you can go to prison for speaking against homosexuality. So,
You think they'll teach Sodom and Gomorrah?
well, at least that's Bible. I wonder if they'll teach the consequences of it. Yeah, it's history. That's a. Yeah, there you go. Right.
If you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, you have a great example of Solomon saying, all of this is vanity. I've done it all.
Mm-hmm.
I've done all of these things. It was nothing. And he gets very end of the book. And he says, this is the conclusion of the matter.
Yeah, and keep His commandments.
And he goes on to say, which these secret sins, like all of that will be brought to light. So if you can keep it in all that in your mind, I'm in fear God and keep His commandments. Not that I'm terrified, but that I respect Him enough. Because they do get references and not to be like my friends, not to be like the world. Because
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. She said, in the conclusion of the whole matter, Ecclesiastes, fear God and keep His commandments. And if we keep that in the mind front, I'm not going to worry about what the world thinks of me. In fact, that's why a lot of people, when preachers, I'm not saying here, I've never had anything said to me or whatnot. I don't know if that's good or bad. But, preachers who preach against the social dancing at high schools, they get in a lot of trouble. They complain to the elders, and the elders let them go. All right, that's one of the. Are you kidding me? That's that topic there of all things sends a preacher off to his next work, and it seems so petty. But why is it that it's hard to preach on? Because people want to be like the world. Okay, the members of the church want to be like the world. Oh, it's okay, and so we're looked at upon Christians in any other aspect, but when it comes to the social thing, don't look at me like some kind of prude. I don't care what anybody thinks about me if it gets me to heaven, if I'm going to do that. But speaking of that, we need to ask ourselves, when it comes to these things in our lives here, what are some questions that we got to ask? Are they? What does the Bible say first and foremost? Period. Okay. And of course, when it comes to dancing specifically, there's no thou shalt not dance, what not. There are examples of the Bible where dancing led to something pretty evil. Somebody lost a head because of a dance. Y'all remember? John the Baptist. Remember, he was arrested because he told told him that it was not lawful to have his brother's wife, so he's in there. Well, just so happened the daughter of that mother did a little dance and aroused that man. And said, whatever your desire, your wish will be granted. I want the head of John the Baptist on a platter. The dance that she did was seductive. And evil happened. Okay? So there's a thing there. I already told you about the incident about where one of my instructors at the youth whatever class, and they were upset because he was talking about the same thing we're talking about tonight. Well, it ain't about, it's just innocent, it's just fun. We just want to hang out. And he said, we're just dancing, it's okay. And then he asked two boys to get up and start dancing with each other, and they didn't do that. They were actually appalled. He said, well, you said it was innocent. Okay. But anyway, so we need to first and foremost remember what the Bible says. We need to ask ourselves if any activity, dancing, television, movies, whatever we're watching, whatever we're allowing inside our brains, is it going to enrich my life as a child of God, or does it hinder my faith or influence? Things I watch on TV, are my kids watching it too? Okay. Let's look at some verses. Let's go to 1 Thessalonians 5 and 22. It's easy. It's an easy verse to read and understand.
What did you say? 1 Thessalonians 5:1?
22.
Abstain from all appearance of evil.
Abstain from some appearances of evil. All. It covers every ground. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Well, why is it evil for... Listen, I was a boy once. I went to middle school dances, and I remember how much I enjoyed that activity. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay? It's just, that's the way it is. It's just, abstain from that. I don't want my mind to go in that direction. I don't need to be lusting for anybody. I need to have my conversation, all my thoughts on things above and not on things on earth. Period. Why? Because eternity's at stake. One slip up, man. One slip up and I could be heading in the wrong direction. I can slip up and watch a video and then like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And then, wait a minute. Click on it again. Am I right? Let's see. Let's go to Psalm 1. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, or stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. Do you see that? Walks, right? Stands, sits. I could walk by something sinful and it could catch my eye, and then I could stop, turn around, and then stand there. Well, the longer I stand there and the longer I realize, well, I'm not struck dead yet, I'm not going to die. Some people use it, well, I can always ask for forgiveness. You ever heard that before? And then all of a sudden I'm pretty comfortable, so I'm going to sit down. And now, before I know it, I'm sitting in comfort in sin. Do we realize how dangerous that is? We're talking about teenagers here, even adults. I mean, adults are just as vulnerable. We're talking about teenagers. Usually, if they were reared in the church, that's about when 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, they talk about being baptized into Christ. And the devil attacks Christians. He doesn't attack the world. He already has the world. but he attacks Christians. That imagine 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy who comes up out of the water as a new creature. Not only is he a babe in Christ, has nowhere near the maturity spiritually, but physically he is vulnerable. So I have to talk about this. And it's because I love, the world will look at anybody who preaches on this as some kind of, you're just a prude, or I don't know if I'm using that word right. You're a goody-goody. That's what the world says. And so that discourages me. I'm just being hypothetical. And so because I'm getting made fun of, I don't want to be made fun of anymore. So now I'm going to be like the world. I'm going to be like the children of Israel who wants a king so they can be like all nations.
11, 12-year-old boy, he obeys the gospel. The devil's after him like 24/7.
It's fresh meat, man.
Trying to make everything look good.
That's exactly right. So you talk about serious eternal consequences, and it doesn't happen like that. It's a subtle thing. And things like a social dance at a high school, middle school, whatnot, looks innocent. But it could be dangerous. Yeah. Yeah, at an early age. Exactly right. Yeah, they look up to people at a young age and they want to look like that. I don't know who they look up to. I don't pay attention. But that's true.
10, 11-year-old girls look like they're 20 or 25.
Sickening, isn't it? I mean, even the guys too, boys too, and the boys are seeing these maturely, physical mature beings coming to them, and the boys' hormones are out of control. They don't know what to do, bless their hearts. But anyway, hey, I know this is one of those lessons where it's kind of hard to hear, but I mean, it's just reality, and it's important to remember and stuff like that. Are there any more comments? Sure. Yeah, the influence can be there too. Absolutely. Very good. Absolutely. All right. Thank y'all so much. I'll see you in a couple weeks.